Today we're going to be looking at notes 2.7, the power of the presidency. So these are our last notes on the executive branch. Next week we will be looking at the judicial branch, and then we will be done with Unit 2. Appointment and removal. The Constitution gives the president the power to appoint people to fill top posts in the executive branch. So around 3,000 appointments. So the president can use these appointments to reward supporters and to win new ones. So during the campaigning process, make some promises to people, people that have supported them along the way. And the president will want to put people in place who support their policies, who think the same way that they do, agree on ideology, whether they're conservative, more liberal. So they're going to want to have people that are like-minded. A third of these appointments are subject to advice and consent of Congress. And so this is to ensure that the people that they're putting in these positions are qualified, have the skills necessary to carry through these positions, like justices and judges, cabinet members, ambassadors, top military advisors. Most appointees serve at the pleasure of the president. A president may remove these people at any time, and this excludes federal judges. They must be impeached by Congress. Executive orders. Executive orders are a formal rule or regulation instructing the executive branch official on how to carry out their job. It has the force of law. Presidents use it as a way to take care that the laws are being faithfully executed. And it's a way for the president to interpret laws passed by Congress and a way for them to get things done quickly. And so executive orders are signed directly by the president and go into effect. A famous executive order that you would have learned about last year in U.S. history is Executive Order 9066. So this was signed by President Franklin Roosevelt during World War II. And so this is the Japanese internment executive order, which was very controversial. So it forced Japanese Americans on the West Coast into internment camps for, they said, I think the quote, like, it was like their necessary and proper protection, because people were fearful that they might try to attack the government. But a lot of these Japanese Americans were American citizens, and so they were forced to leave their homes, businesses, belongings behind, and be imprisoned essentially in these internment camps until the war was over. And so that is just, again, an example of an executive order that was used. And again, Congress did not pass it. The president made this law, signed it into action, and it was followed through. Executive privilege. Executive privilege allows the president to refuse to release information to Congress or a court. It is often disputed by the other branches. It can shield information in the interest of national security, must be able to hold private discussions with advisors. It's not mentioned in the Constitution, but courts have generally supported the idea, the concept, and it was put to test with the Watergate scandal when Nixon refused to hand over his private tape. So he would record every conversation he had in the Oval Office. And so those had evidence that he had sent people into the Watergate Hotel to steal information. And so he was eventually forced to turn over those tapes. Diplomatic powers. The president represents the U.S. in interactions with foreign governments. So they can negotiate treaties, formal agreements between nations, end conflicts, form alliances, establish trade relationships. 2/3 of the Senate is necessary for those to be enacted. Also, executive agreements. Agreements between a president and another head of the government does not require approval by the Senate. Diplomatic recognition, power to formally recognize the legitimacy of a formal government. So here we see President George Bush. When he was president, he had a state visit with Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. And so when they're on these types of events, they are representing the U.S. as the leader of our country, which they are. Military powers, commander in chief. Responsibility to ensure the defense and security of the nation and its interest around the world. Congress has the power to declare war. More than 200 military actions have been ordered, 11 official declarations of war. Following the Vietnam War, Congress passed the War Powers Act in an attempt to restrain the power of the president to commit troops to different actions. Presidents have questioned the constitutionality of the law and in many cases have ignored it. And if you think about since the Vietnam War, we've had the Gulf War, the war in Afghanistan, we've had many other military actions where U.S. troops have been sent into combat areas. Legislative powers. The president has the power to influence the work of Congress as the chief agenda setter. Propose legislation to Congress, can work closely with lawmakers. They also have the power of veto. After Congress passes a bill, the president can sign it, making it a law, or veto it by killing the bill. Congress can override the veto. This requires a two-thirds vote, and it's very difficult to achieve. The threat of a veto can influence Congress to change a bill to fit what the president wants. Judicial powers can nominate federal judges and justices. They can place people on the Supreme Court who have similar political beliefs. So when a member of the Supreme Court passes away, which we've seen frequently, the president has the power to nominate and to make a replacement. And because that person stays on the Supreme Court for the rest of their life or until they choose to retire, it can make a big impact in the kind of political mindedness of the court. But this is also checked by the Senate. They can alter the sentences of people convicted through clemency, federal crimes only. So they can offer reprieve, postpone the carrying out of a sentence or the length of a time a person is put in jail. They can pardon someone, releases a convicted criminal from their sentence. They can grant amnesty, grants a group of offenders a general pardon for offenses committed, or they can commute a sentence, meaning they reduce how long a person has to serve. And pictured here is President William Howard Taft. So he was president after Theodore Roosevelt, and he did not win re-election. But after he was president, he became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which was a better role for him. He actually liked being part of the Supreme Court better than being president. Informal powers, not directly stated in the Constitution. So the president has access to media. In the time of Theodore Roosevelt, people referred to it as the bully pulpit. That kind of he can command a presence. Has the ability to basically communicate what he wants, and he has the power to kind of have people listen to him. So presidents can easily present their case to the public through a press conference, employ a staff of media experts, can help them build support for their agenda. As the party leader, Congress party members are expected to follow the president's agenda. In return, the president will support fellow party members during election time. Checks on the president. Formal checks. Actions are subject to judicial review. Presidential power is also checked by Congress. Block a president's appointment, overrides a veto. Informal checks. Media is the primary source, keeps the American people informed, and this is protected in the First Amendment with freedom of the press, free speech. Public approval acts as a check. Strong public support can persuade Congress to follow them. Low public support can cause Congress to push back against the president. So this is the end of the notes. You want to make sure you go back, fill in definitions for any of the key terms that we went over.